Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Robert Frost. Welcome to The Lost Traveler. I'm your host, Henry Cameron Allen. And today I have a very special guest, a brand new friend, OJ Rushton, who is a coach, a composer, an author, a music director. She directs an online choir and is part of a national peace project as well, right? You're a director of in Australia.
Correct.
Welcome to The Lost Traveler. I'm thrilled to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I am just so honored to be here.
Thanks. And we just we did one of your shows together. The Daily
Grind. OJ's The Daily Grind.
Love that. It was great. It's great getting to know people. One of the things we talked about is the frequency that seems to be matching up with people who are sort of cut from the same cloth, as it were, and find the same impulses that are needed, and an attitude of service, and really coming at the world from the heart. And I really, as I'm getting to know you just through this conversation, and we met through another group as well, Amy's group, and we're finding those people, aren't we? What do you think that's about?
We are. Well, I think you referenced this a little while ago in our previous conversation, just about the fact that we are all connected. And I think, although I think we're connected through the universe, we are all, and through our DNA, as we talked about, that we're also connected these days through technology. And I think technology gets a bad rap about all the bad things that have changed because of technology. But I think we have to stop and acknowledge the good, because, I mean, let's face it, through this crazy time of COVID, we're in a global pandemic. You're stuck in Spain. I'm stuck in Australia, even though it's where I live. Yeah. Technology is connecting us. Technology is giving us a sense of community. And I think we have to acknowledge that is part of it, and that technology becomes a vehicle through which we can connect. And, that those of us on that, those frequencies, we find people on the same frequency. But how do we do that? Well, I think technology is part of that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a vehicle. It's how we use it, and the impulses behind it can be used for trafficking human beings. It can be used for selling weapons, and there's this sort of dark underweb as well that nobody really knows much about, and things are traded and sold there that we don't even want to think about, let alone talk about. But we're seeing emerge right now, I feel, sort of an unveiling. There's an exposure of all the good and all the not so great aspects of our humanity. There's one, have you ever heard of Rudolf Steiner?
Yes.
The Steiner schools. And
the Steiner schools, yes. We actually have one here.
Yeah. Well, I was involved with Steiner schools in the U.S., and then also have done some theater work in the
Yes.
anthroposophical world. And one of the things that really struck me that he would talk about in terms of his movement, anthroposophy, which basically means anthro, human, Sophia, meaning wisdom, right?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
puts the human being at the center of consciousness, and presents these sort of forces outside of us that we're connected to, and call them temptations, right? One is sex, drugs, and rock and roll up here. And then the other one is technology and, everything, cell phones and computers and industry,
Yeah.
mechanicals and earthbound
Yeah.
things, and down here. And the image that he presented was the human being sort of in the figure of the Christ, not Jesus Christ, the person, but the Christ
Mm.
consciousness, the sort of, center of good and evil and
Yeah.
linchpin, right? And rather than the arms being extended like the letter T, as you see on the mountain in
Mm-hmm.
Rio de Janeiro, right? That's the gesture
Mm-hmm.
of Christ,
Mm-hmm.
even on the cross. He's got one hand extended upward and another hand extended downward, keeping those temptations at bay, right? That
Mm.
it's the human being that's at the center, and the power of sort of not allowing oneself to be manipulated by those things, but actually
Yeah.
being able to be conscious of their existence, be conscious of the power that they have for both good and
Yes.
evil. But ultimately,
Yeah.
we are, as human beings, in the unique position of responsibility for how
We are.
they are
And
used.
that actually that brings me to
I love that.
something my mother told me when I was young, and I lost my brother very young to leukemia. And I was trying to make sense of the world as an 8-year-old, and I couldn't understand why it had to be my brother. Why couldn't it be someone else's brother? Why did this all fall on me? And of course, you can imagine a young mum trying to answer these unanswerable questions to her very angry daughter at the time. And she said something to me that really has helped shape my life. And I think it's really at the center of what you're saying of personal responsibility. Because at the end of the day, she said, I don't know why these things have happened. I don't understand. I can't answer those questions for you. But what I can say to you is this is either going to make you a bitter person or a better person. Bitter or better, it's your choice.
And we're going to take a brief pause right now to hear a word from our sponsor.
And I think what you were just explaining about the personal personal responsibility is that at the end of the day, it's choice, isn't it?
Yeah,
We
and
get to choose whether we take or reject those things
that's
and how we use them.
cross
Yeah.
culture. We see that.
Yeah.
That's an essential part of our humanity. And I think that it's easy to get lost in all of it, and especially for a young
Yes.
person. How old were you when the planes hit the World Trade Center in New York?
Too old.
Oh, honey.
So I was in my 30s.
Okay,
I was in my 30s.
so we were about the
So I was.
same age, and
Yeah.
and I was working with children. I was actually working teaching in a Steiner school, and we were out on the play.
Oh wow.
We were out on the play yard, and I remember that moment. And when we were called in and we were told, and the thought occurred to me that night as I was sort of trying to figure out how, as a guide to young children, how can
Mm,
I hold this, and how can I hold them through this insane?
yeah.
And the realization came to me that nobody was telling children at that time that those planes weren't hitting the buildings over and over and over in every part of the world. Young children did not have the capacity to understand what was really happening. And I don't think that any adult at that time, because we had never faced anything like that in our lifetime,
No.
had the tools to be able to hold these kids through that. And I have to wonder if that didn't spark something in the development of these young children who are now today in their 20s and
Yeah.
30s, right? What do you think about that? I think that it's very hard not to get caught up and lost in technology. This really
Yeah.
has
Yeah. I think, look, I think again, coming back to that sort of personal responsibility, and I guess for me, I mean, as an educator as well, and I've been kind of in music, performance coaching, education, most of my life. Is I think teaching children how to think, not what to think,
Mhm.
and then teaching them about boundaries and encouraging them to make their own boundaries, not telling them what boundaries they should have, because that's the first. I mean, obviously, you tell a child, don't go there. What's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to go there, right?
Yeah,
It's just human nature, right? So
right.
I think that's the thing. And what I teach my children in the choir, because we're an online choir. So we do a lot of stuff online. We use technology to connect us around the world. And now with COVID, 100% so.
Right.
We there's no other way, otherwise we would cease to exist. So how do you do that? And I think, one of the things, drawing from an experience of my childhood, my dad was a very wise man. And, I remember the era of when television turned up in our lounge rooms.
Mm.
And there was a lot of controversy at the time about whether this was kind of some horrendous thing that was taking the control, that was turning up in people's homes and teaching children. And in a sense it was it was the early days of technology, wasn't it? And so I had friends whose parents absolutely refused to get a television because it was like, oh, it was dangerous, and it was like all these horrible things. And then I had friends who it was free reign. It was like there was a television, you could watch whatever, you could do whatever, you could listen to whatever. That parents didn't really care, right? So I had this kind of polar opposite of my friends. And my dad kind of, I feel, was trying to sit in the middle a little bit,
Mhm.
and would sit down with me and we would watch television together. And he would be like, something would come on that would be like, okay, should we be watching this?
Okay.
Why should we be watching this? Why shouldn't we be watching this? What decisions are you going to make? So he would say, here is the on button, here is the off button, here is the change channel button. This thing is your servant. You are not its servant.
That's right.
You do not have to blindly sit there and watch what comes in front of you. You have choice. You have to step into personal responsibility and make choices for yourself about even whether you will watch this. Should you be watching television if you have homework? Is this something you should prioritize? Where are your priorities? And I think technology, in a sense, is a similar thing. If we can teach our children how to harness technology, use it for good, but set their own boundaries, teach them how to think, how to make logical decisions, how to problem solve, how to be solutions driven. Is someone is being bullied and I do not like this online, that is a problem. What can I do about it? What decisions should I make? Is there something I can do to actually help fix the problem? Or is it something that I just shouldn't be involved in and I need to walk away from? Do you see what I'm saying? Like that, I think to
Absolutely.
me, that's a real key moving forward for our
Well,
children.
and that comes down to life skills and recognizing, being
Yes.
able to self-evaluate to say that I am equipped to handle this or I am not equipped
Yes.
to handle this. If I don't have the equipment in my toolkit to meet that problem, right?
Yes.
Then let's go find someone who does. And I think that's part of the conversation
Yes.
that's missing a lot with teaching children is that permission to ask for help. If you can't find it in
Yes.
your immediate surroundings, like with your parents, because certainly
Yeah.
not every parent is going to be proficient in everything, and
No.
most parents indeed are quite deficient in many essential life skills,
Especially technology.
especially technology, and we're finding it with schools as well. Another thing I appreciated
Yeah.
much as a parent and as an educator at the Steiner School in America, we call them Waldorf schools, is
Mm.
that they encourage delaying the use of technology as long as possible to allow
Yeah.
children to unfold their capacities organically and naturally through every stage of their life, and to give them a foundation in connecting to themselves, into connecting
Yeah.
with other human beings, to the natural world of animals and plants that
Yeah.
technology removes us from and presents us with a facsimile.
Yeah.
And you think
Yeah.
back to the beginnings of audiovisual technology with radio, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
first radios, and we're of an age where we could actually ask our grandparents, do you remember the first radio? With the first
Yeah.
plane, the first car, right? Technology was meeting them. They were born on the heels of the Industrial Revolution, right?
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
educational system that we see in the world today is not much.
Based on that.
It's based on that to get children out of nature, off
Mm.
farms, and into classrooms, and eventually into
Yes.
factories, really dehumanizing
Yes.
them. And
To
so
exactly to be workers,
that's right, to be work,
worker bees.
right?
That's the whole
So
education
what they were
system.
presented with the first radio was not a symphony orchestra that, if you have listened to a symphony or a choir, right, in person, there's
Mm.
a there's a frequency, there's a vibration, there's energy being shared
Mm.
between human
Yeah.
beings that cannot be replicated
Hmm.
through technology.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
Steiner
Which
warned,
is why I can't wait till COVID's over and we can go back to
yes,
singing in our
oh,
local
you
communities
know,
as
me and the
well.
theater, we're all sitting here planning
Yeah.
for it. See,
Yeah.
because we know it's going
Yeah.
to happen. We also know it's going to change and that it's going to take some time. But
Yes.
to have this particular conversation is so important, and I'm glad we are, because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not only for children's sake, but for our own. Listen up. How can a sock, a patch, or an insole help so many people live their best lives pain-free, balanced, and strong? Scientifically speaking, there is a proprietary pattern embedded in Vox, socks, and insoles that touches specific neuropoints and other receptors in the metatarsal or ball of the foot, creating homeostasis or balance in the brainstem. This prime real estate in your brain is responsible for automatic functions like balance, stability, strength, power, range of motion, flexibility, mobility, and so much more. The Vox patch works in the same way, but it uses receptors on other parts of your body to elicit the same response. The moment your receptors touch this Vox technology, it opens up communication pathways throughout your unique system, allowing you to become instantly stronger, more balanced, have less pain, and increased range of motion. In short, Vox technology helps optimize the brainstem, allowing your body to self-regulate and self-heal. Vox products are non-electrical, non-invasive, have no negative side effects, no metals, magnets, or plastics, and are drug-free. Results are instant, scientifically proven, and time-tested. For a limited time, buy any 2 items and get 1 pair of socks or thin insoles free, a savings of up to $50. Contact Diane Dinkmeyer at voxlife.com for more info. That's Diane Dinkmeyer at voxlife.com. You'll be glad you did. To remember that in most places in the world, you can still go out and stand in the grass and breathe fresh air.
You
Sadly,
can. Even if you're in stage 4 lockdown, you can still do that.
For lockdown, I know that you guys went through those horrible, devastating fires last year, and
Yes.
in America, the whole West is on fire.
I know. I've seen that on the TV.
And I know you guys can empathize with that, and so it may be difficult actually to step out into nature and breathe.
Well, it is at the moment for us.
Mhm.
We can, and nearly the whole country except for Melbourne is not in major lockdown. I mean, we still have restrictions in most places, but even in Melbourne, you're allowed to go within a 5K radius. You can walk, so you can go outside and you can walk your dog. You can have one walk a day, all of that stuff. And I think that's the thing. I think I said, when we chatted on the other thing that we connected with, that other group, and I think the question was asked, how have you got through this time? And I mean, I think just getting out, and I've encouraged so many people that I've spoken to, and even on the daily grind, even though that is, people connecting through technology, it's get out and walk, open the window, stick your head out the window if you live in an apartment, get oxygen into your brain, into your airways from the outside world, get the sunshine on you, even if it's from inside and you can open a window, just make sure our bodies need that. And if you can earth yourself, take your shoes off and actually connect to the ground, connect to the earth, to the grass, to the sand, to the rocks, that is amazing for your headspace. And walking, I just recently heard a really great interview on one of our local radio stations here about a woman who she had quite a bit of loss in her life, and she was very lost. And so she decided just to go out for a walk one day, and one thing led to another, and she has walked all over the world. She has climbed mountains. She has, done that, and she's written this amazing book about, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but just about the research that's been done on even just walking, the act of getting out and walking and being in the elements and the trees and nature. And there's a whole heap of science around that is just incredibly important for human beings and our mental health.
We fall out of routine, and I think to be able to make that part of one's routine, especially if you have a family with children, what do they say? You do something 32 times and it becomes habit, or something like that.
Something like that.
Frankly, and for those that are listening who have young kids who are essentially addicted to technology, it's really hard to pry it out of their hands and say, let's go for a walk. If you're in an urban center, where are you going to go to plant your bare feet in the earth, or anywhere where there may not be a hypodermic needle sticking out of the dirt? I mean, there are so many. We think about privilege and we think about luxury. Those of us that have, I'm in extremely rural Spain right now, so I don't have any. But when I was in an urban center and I was teaching, I would often take my students out, even onto the pavement in the play yard. There was no real grass or anything there, and it was just a fenced off area of asphalt. And I'd have them lie down on the asphalt, as long as it wasn't too hot, and have them close their eyes and listen for sounds of nature in the city. Even in the city, you'll hear the wind, you'll hear the birds, right? Or a dog barking off in the distance somewhere in someone's flat,
Absolutely.
So to start a tuning, and this is again, this is ageless, this is universal, this is timeless. You can
Yeah.
find ways. There's always a way, but to even during this, even if you are in severe
Yeah.
lockdown, there are
Yeah.
ways to do it, and permission is a powerful thing, isn't it?
It is. Actually, I've got a friend who taught me a very powerful focus meditation. So if you need to if you need to, create, work, whatever, whether it's on technology or however you need to do it. And this is like, it's so amazing because doing this is so far removed from technology, but it actually helps kind of ground and center you as a person. And it's a really, really simple technique. And I don't know whether your listeners would be interested in maybe just learning it. It's
I'm
so
sure,
simple
please. Yes, absolutely.
and it works. It's amazing. So you need to leave technology behind for this. And walking is the best way to do this. But if you can't walk, you can still do this by opening a window so that you can hear the outside world and be connected to the outside, because I know a lot of people in lockdown have just stayed inside and like binge watched Netflix and all of that sort of stuff. You need to put technology away, turn off the television, close your phone, go outside. And if you're walking or if you're just standing, the first thing you do is you ask yourself, what can I see? And then you name all the things that you become aware of. I can see a bird, I can see the sky, I can see the grass, I can see the leaves on the tree, I can see and be as descriptive as you can. The brown bark on the tree, I can see a yellow daisy, I can, and you do that for as long as, your brain allows you to see more, and you go, oh, and I can see, and it's like I Spy, the old car game we used to play, and your brain just starts going, oh, and I can see this and I can see that. And then when you've seen all of the things that you're just conscious of in that moment, then you say, what can I hear? And you can do that while you're walking or when you're standing. You can even just like sit outside on a balcony and just, with your feet up and a cup of tea, you can do this. It's amazing. And so, what can I hear? And then you say, I can hear my feet walking. I can hear dogs bark. And it's like what you did with the children closing their eyes, and you just become aware. And, what can I feel? And you just go through all the senses, and it is the most invigorating experience. You should try it.
Your generous sponsorship and individual support of the Lost Traveler podcast benefits the Lost Travelers Club, a charitable project under the fiscal sponsorship of United Charitable, a nonprofit 501c3 organization. The Lost Travelers Club focuses primarily on the needs of parents who have outlived their beloved children. We recently launched our new Brain Candy Project wing, providing art supplies to children still struggling with critical or terminal health-related conditions. We hope to raise enough funds to launch Brain Candy, an arts and literature magazine created by and for these young people. Find out more at www.braincandy.online. Thank you.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. Well, this is,
And it's so simple.
it's so simple, and if you make it a practice, then you're tuning into your senses and your abilities. And we have more than five senses, people. This is another thing I
We
teach
do.
kids and adults alike, and you know this in coaching. We have a sense of humor, we have a sense of
Yeah.
beauty, a sense of danger, a sense of impending doom, right? We have
Yes.
many senses around us, a sense of another person's energy, right? Or an animal.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
so it opens us up to so much more of our human experience than we're allowing ourselves. As I say, technology, it's dead energy. We're having a great conversation
Absolutely.
now, but those of us who are listening, to one another are listening to a facsimile. There's no living energy exchange between us, and that's the danger zone, I think. And especially now, we have to think of this as temporary. This is not going to be forever, where we're limited to virtual hugs. We need.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait to actually properly hug everyone again.
I know, it's horrible. I mean, I keep thinking about these, children, and we were talking about Eastern Europe earlier, and there's so many orphanages where horribly children are not touched and they die. They become very, very disturbed.
But sadly, I don't know if it's like this where you are in America, but in Australia, it's getting more and more in the education system because of domestic violence and sexual abuse and all of these horrible things where human touch has been violated and it's been broken down. Is that like teachers are not actually allowed to make the first move to touch a child. Like they have to be the one. And so I see some dangerous things happening. I mean, I get why they're happening, and I think there has to be boundaries around touch and all of that stuff. But I agree. It's that the need for human touch and even hugs. I don't know if there's been some great studies done on hugs and how a 5-second hug and a 15-second hug and a 25-second hug all have different meanings.
That's right.
And they all have different what's the word? They have benefits.
Benefits, they trigger benefits in the human system, in your nervous system, in your digestive system, in your mental.
Absolutely.
It's so important. It's vital. And I think that there are so many questions right now, and it's easy to find, one of the gifts of technology is that we are privy to much more information than we ever have been in history. But with that comes a lot of misinformation as well. And it's hard to sort out what's true. We're looking at government leadership around the world. That is now, has everyone questioning truth. And I always come back to how are children meeting this? How are children seeing this? How are they processing this? And what can we do in the parenting generation to guide them when we ourselves are feeling doubt and uncertainty and misgivings, mistrust, mistrust in human touch? There are these amazing, like the Me Too movement, where people are finally, women and men, are talking about their experiences that have been hushed for so long. It's giving a lot of young people permission to own themselves and to be empowered to say, this doesn't feel right, so it's not right. And to be able to talk about it if they have been violated, at the same time.
And I think there needs to be some education around that and some enabling around that, because I still think that there's a lot of there's a lot of shame and blame, and society hasn't caught up yet to being okay with people talking about that, especially when they're often talking about local leaders and stuff like that. So I think there still needs to be a lot of work done in that area, and also domestic violence. I mean, in this COVID situation, the domestic violence has risen because people are stuck with often perpetrators in their home, whereas once they could get out, they've been locked in to unhealthy situations.
As a child growing up in a violent home, oftentimes school is the only refuge, and to not have that out, to not have a place to go where you can feel safe. We have to be preparing for receiving the other side of that, and having mental health care in place protecting and for supporting the journey in the future of these kids. We don't know that we are all, this is why this is called the lost traveler. We are all
we're trying to find our way through.
But you know, hey, we can find it together because of these kinds of conversations. You know, there's nothing planned here. There are no scripted questions. What's coming forward is exactly, precisely what we need to be talking about right now. You and I, invariably, there are going to be other people out there. I have listenership in over 20 countries now. And there are going to be people invariably who are going to have the same questions or didn't even think that they had these questions. They didn't know until they heard it right now.
Exactly.
So I appreciate your candor and your openness and sensitivity to be able to share your experience here. If you were going to reflect back and think about 3 things, let's say, that you would want people to take away from this conversation. Not to put you on the spot.
Sure. Well, I think
like practical tools.
Practical stuff. Okay. So here's 3 things just off the top of my head from just what my heart is saying from what we've discussed. Firstly, I think it's really, really important that regardless of where you're at in this unprecedented time of global pandemic in history, I mean, it's not unprecedented in that there have been global pandemics, but never in the world we're living in right now, is to be connected with yourself and with the outside world, like go walking, get into the fresh air, get the sunshine, you know, for your mental health sake. I think that's a really, really important thing that we should all be taking personal responsibility for how we feel and solving the problems as they come up. I think that's a really important thing. I think, you know, we've had a whole conversation around technology and also with children. And I feel that we should give parents permission to be able to put boundaries on that for their children, and whatever that means for you, for your household. But I think boundaries and education around technology, I think that's a really, really important thing.
21st century life skills warrant 21st century education. Every human being is born into a classroom, each of us given the same homework, the same core assignments. Personal care skills, emotional literacy, financial literacy, environmental literacy. These and other essential life skills are unique, learned and used by each of us every day of our lives. Indeed, they are the common thread in our humanity, core to individuals and the communities they construct, surviving and thriving. Raising the bar on life skills education for all. This is the mission of Parenting 2.0. Visit www.parenting2pt0.org for more information.
And then connecting with our artistic side, the musical side of both of us, and the references to music. I think having music in your life, and whether it's singing, the act of singing, even singing in the shower, you don't, you know, the research has shown that you don't even have to sing in tune for singing to be the same benefit. You can have the same benefits from singing out of tune as someone who's singing in tune, as far as what it's doing for you inside.
Do you know why? Do you know why that is? Do you know why that is, OJ? Because human beings.
You tell me.
Human beings sang before we ever spoke. If you look at any language, any human language that's closer to the equator, you'll notice it's much more open, it's much more musical, it has a lot of highs and lows, and, right? You listen to any indigenous language, right, that emerged
Yes.
from
Yep.
that part of the world. And then once we separated from the equator and went up into colder climates, what happens when you go outside and it's winter or very, very cold? Your jaw tightens up and you could,
Yeah.
right? You start to shiver. That's where speech evolved, was from the change in climate. Think about it.
There we go.
And so you think
Yeah.
of Nordic and Germanic languages, right? Everything's
Yeah.
very, very tight and very close, right? Whereas you think of the Mediterranean and you think of
Yes, it's very
all
open. And
right. So to remember that human, this voice box, this magical little box that lives in all of our throats, is actually designed for singing, not for speech.
yeah. Yes.
Every human being can sing.
Yes.
Tune, tone,
Absolutely.
that doesn't matter. It's all
No.
about projecting sound and vibration and frequency. That's the first thing I
Yes. And it's a very healing thing to do, to sing out, to express yourself in, to kind of let go. And so I think, they're my three takeaways.
yes.
But to end with singing, I think the world has lost the ability to sing. We were all, as you said, we all started as singers, and even I know in my culture in Australia, and even Western culture in Australia, 100 years ago, we were a nation of singers,
Yes.
and now all of a sudden it's become not cool for young people to sing.
Right.
And I think that we need to go back to our roots and not be scared to express ourselves through song. I
Every
think
child,
that's a big thing.
tell me one child who isn't playing with their toys and singing to themselves,
Singing.
right?
Yes,
So it's the adults. It's
absolutely.
the adult world that has gotten, and this is what I come back to, is the vulnerability. That's the key. Because when
Yeah.
you are in your natural state, which, like being unclothed is your natural state, we
Hmm.
feel vulnerable when we're unclothed around others, right?
Hmm.
No different with your voice. Your voice singing is your natural
Yeah,
state, and that opens you up to vulnerability.
absolutely.
It opens you up to criticism from
Yeah.
others, right? And
And I think that's a key thing with parents. If I can encourage parents listening to this, is please encourage your children to sing when you hear them singing, because so often I think, parents, they get busy and they get, frustrated, and then you've got your kids singing in the background. You go, shut up, be quiet,
Mhm.
stop singing. And it's very easy to kind of just put a, slam that down onto them, and they go, oh, and they learn not to sing.
That's
They
right.
learn to, by your, like, so it's really important. And I think we as adults have to be really careful to encourage young people to express themselves through
Without
song.
putting them on the spot and making them perform like, you know,
Yeah.
you know, because I remember feeling that way in my youth. I would say in my 20s and 30s, whenever anyone asked me to sing, I would feel all of a sudden I would shut down because, like you said, all my life I heard people telling me shut up, right?
Exactly.
And so it's hard.
Exactly.
Where's the pivot that you have to navigate as a parent to not discourage your child, but also not
Yeah.
encourage them? And for me, I really think the answer is let them watch you, hear you singing.
Yeah. Be the example.
While you're doing your dishes, sing while you're doing the
Yeah.
laundry, sing while you're out, sing full voice when you're out mowing the lawn, with a hammer, find your rhythm, rhythm is part of it, singing is part of
Yeah.
it. And I hope someday that you and I, OJ, will get to sing together. I think that would be a
That
blast.
would be magical. And I look forward to that. Let's just put that out there,
I just,
that one day we will, and that we will be able to lead a large group of people in song together. How does that sound?
I love it. I love it. And
And actually, we also have coming up, and I know this is done through technology rather than it's the next best thing right now because we don't have other choices. But I think we have an international peace project coming up, which is standing together for peace
oh,
and standing for veterans and their families, singing to remember and rethinking remembrance for the next generation. So I'll send that to you, and you can send that out to your
I'll put the
listeners.
link in the description below, so listeners, you can go, and I'll also have your other links so people can get to know you.
Yeah. So we should be launching that by the end of September, giving people about 4 weeks to learn the songs or upload their own songs. And we're going to have a Sing to Remember festival, an international peace project, connecting us through technology and through song around the world.
Well, you can count on me to be a part of it, and I will help promote it and share it. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you.
And I look
Thank you for
forward
having me. And yeah, and thank you to everyone listening around the world. I look forward to connecting with you guys as well, and hearing, some of the outcomes of what you're thinking about this, and some of the, the solutions as well.
Absolutely. Well, stay well, and we'll talk again real soon.
Yes, thank you. All the
Kiss.
best.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, kisses.
You've been listening to The Lost Traveler with Henry Cameron Allen. For more information, please visit www.henryallen.org. Thanks so much for tuning in, and let's all keep striving for a better world. Thank you.